Hi Sociology. So today in this video lesson we're going to be talking about sociological perspectives. We're going to be looking at the founders of sociology, the sociologists who pushed the bounds of the field, and why do we need to know about these people? Because how we look at society today, how we analyze social behaviors, comes from these theories. So, hope you're excited. I'm excited. Let's get started. So, how did sociology start? Now, before I talk about this, there are no terms to know in this lesson. I didn't forget to put a slide in, so no terms to know for this particular lesson. Sociology first starts coming around the 1800s. The event that really precipitates this is the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is a shift from agriculturally based economies to a factory industry-based economy. So you have these large urban centers that pop up. This particularly happens first in Britain, in places like Manchester, that go from a small village to a giant urban city. Now, because you're having all these cities and all these factories, people are going to move to these cities for work, and you're going to have lots of different people from different areas in one particular small geographic location. So you're going to be seeing these people interact a lot more than you would in small rural areas. Also, you're going to have housing shortages, crime, lack of jobs. So there's a lot of things that you could observe and test and see. And this is when sociology really takes off as a science. Now, the first sociologist, or really the founder of sociology, is Auguste Comte. He's French, and he said, when we're looking at society, and again, he was looking at the Industrial Revolution, he said we're going to look at two things. The first thing are social statics. Those are things in society that do not change. For instance, the importance of family and family order. Those things do not change. He said the second thing we're going to look at are social dynamics. Now, those are things that do change. A great example of a social dynamic is the role of media and globalization to impact how we see each other, to how we see the world, and how we get our values and norms in society. Now, second person is going to be Herbert Spencer. Herbert was from England. He takes the view of a biological view of society. He was really inspired by the works of Charles Darwin and the natural selection theory. And he took Darwin's biological natural selection theory and put it into a social setting. And he's the person who coined the phrase survival of the fittest. Not Charles Darwin, Herbert Spencer. Now, Herbert Spencer believed that we should not do anything in society to help others. We should have no social reforms, no welfare or free healthcare or anything like that. We should not do anything that would help people who are on the bottom levels of society, because they should die out. And so the most fit people, the most successful people in society live on. That was his view. Now, that's a very different, we would say that's a little bit harsh, but that was his view. And again, he said because the best traits of society would survive over time. Get rid of the poor, it'll decrease the surplus population. Next person we're going to look at is Emile Durkheim. Durkheim was French, and he was the first one to apply scientific principles to society. He was the person who said, okay, you have to observe what goes on, you have to record it, you have to have a hypothesis, you have to have a control experiment, a control test, and your experiment, you have to check back, you have to collect data that will either prove or disprove your hypothesis. That's really, he's the person who changed sociology the most, because sociologists have to have data to look at social behavior, and that comes from Emile Durkheim. So he said that society is all interrelated. It's like a watch. A watch isn't one piece of equipment. It's multiple cogs and wheels and sprockets and all these things working together so that you can look at a watch and know what time it is. And he said that we should look at the function of all of these parts, all of these springs and screws that make up society. So he would say we need to look at, and again, a function is an element of society. So let's look at family. Let's look at the role of religion. Let's look at values. Let's look at media. So he said instead of looking at everything as a whole, let's look at the particular parts and the functions that they play. The thing he specifically looked at was the order and role of religion in society at the time. Next person we're going to look at is Karl Marx. And you're going to say, hold on there, Mr. Miller. Karl Marx makes no sense. Wasn't Karl Marx the founder of communism? And yes, he was. But he's could also be considered a valuable contributor to sociology, because he really focused on how society is influenced by economics. Because what he theorized is that at this time during the Industrial Revolution, you have all these factory owners and all these workers. And he said there are two groups. We got the bourgeoisie and we got the proletariat. The bourgeoisie would be like the factory owners and factory managers, and the proletariats would be the factory workers. They would be the poor people, the lower paid people. And he said the bourgeoisie have all this power, even though there's only a few of them, and the proletariats, there are tons of them, and they have very little power. And he said that this imbalance of power is going to lead to rebellion. So we look at Karl Marx and say when you have a large gap between rich and poor and a lot of inequality economically, you're going to have conflict. And the last person we're going to be looking at is Max Weber. Max Weber is Prussian, that would be German. And he's looking at the groups within a society rather than society as a whole. So he would be looking at subcultures, he would be looking at particular age groups, he might be looking at certain gender groups. And the question he tried to answer is, what is the effect of society on the individual? We get bombarded with all this stuff as kids that makes us into the people that we are today. We get indoctrinated with so many beliefs from religion and government and education. What's the effect of society on us? Do we need society to be an individual? What if society changes? Do we change along with it? He also believed in Wehrstein. Yeah, I know that makes no sense. I'm saying it in German. Wehrstein, where you put yourself in the place of someone else to understand them. Why is it that there's a strong gang and drug culture in certain urban populations with certain ethnic groups? Well, he'd say you have to go in there and try to really understand where those people are coming from. You have to imagine yourself in that person's place to really understand some of these big questions. He also talked about something called an ideal type, which is the essential characteristics of a society. So for instance, if that society was really about peace, so let's say, let's do Switzerland. Switzerland's all about neutrality. Doesn't really want to get involved in world affairs, really doesn't want to make alliances. So Weber would say that the ideal type of Switzerland, of the Swiss society, would be neutrality. Just an example. Well, those are the early founders of sociology. Hope you learned something you did not know before. Thanks for watching.